Welcome to Lessons from the Sensei, Law, Business, and Life.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Lessons from the Sensei, Law, Business, and Life with Denis Quintana, veteran Orlando defense attorney. My name's Sean O'Connor, and today we're talking about what to do if you find out there's a warrant for your arrest in Florida. For a lot of people, this doesn't happen in a dramatic way. It's a phone call, a letter, or someone telling you your name showed up, and suddenly you're trying to figure out what to do next. And the way you handle that moment can make things a lot better, or they can make things worse. So let's get into what actually matters when you find yourself in that situation of having a warrant out. Denis, good to see you.
Hey, Sean, always a pleasure to see you as well.
It sounds like a nightmare finding out you've got a warrant out for your arrest. How do people usually find out? I mean, where do they start making it worse when they do find out? Like, I'm imagining a traffic stop and there's a warrant out for your arrest.
Yeah, so that's a very good example. I'll tell you a little story, right? So I went to law school a long time ago because I'm an old man. But when I was in law school, I went to the beach and I parked my car. I went to the beach. When I came back, I had a ticket on my car because I didn't pay apparently the parking. Okay, so I get the ticket, I send it in the mail, I pay it off, and this was in the early 90s, like 1990. Okay,
Yeah.
so I used to actually write checks. I don't know if you
Your
remember
check and a
that.
stamp. Yeah.
Check and a stamp, and so I pay check, right? So then 1993, I graduate law school. I'm applying for the Florida bar, and the Florida bar, as all bars, they have two components. They have the written exam, but they also have a background check. Okay, so I get a letter back from the bar, and it says, "Please explain why you failed to disclose that your license is suspended."
Oh,
I'm like, my license has never been suspended. What are you talking about? They go,
yeah.
well, in 1990, you failed to pay a traffic fine and your license was suspended. And I'm like, again, in 1990, I was writing actual checks. And in
Right.
1990, I would even keep the checks, right? They would come back as a canceled check and I'd store them.
That's right.
So I had a canceled check. Okay. I had to go down to the DMV, show them my canceled check, get them to reinstate my license, right? And then I had to give a very long explanation to the Florida bar, including a letter from the clerk of courts that said, it was our mistake. We transposed the citation number incorrectly. So the ticket has, I don't know how many digits. They applied
Sure.
my money to somebody else's ticket by error. Okay. Well, in the course of that time, between 1990, when I got the ticket, and 1993, when I found out my license was suspended, had I been pulled over for speeding, okay,
Mm-hmm.
they would have arrested me. They would have said,
All
dude,
right,
you're
because
driving on a suspended license.
right.
Okay. I didn't know. Right.
No.
And so sometimes people will get, an order for your arrest for things you don't know. So in driving, it could be, I got a bunch of tolls, but my license, I haven't updated my license because I lived in this apartment before,
Hmm.
and then I moved to a new apartment. And when I changed apartments, I didn't go back to DMV and update my license. And so the toll people send my tickets to the old place. The old place didn't
Yeah.
forward them to me, and I never knew, and so they suspended my license. So that's one scenario. Another scenario is, the cops are doing an investigation. They A victim says this happened, and they try to find me. They can't find me because, let's say, I sped off from the scene, and so they don't get my side of the story. So the cops just say, okay, we'll just put a warrant out for him. And so I don't find out about that. Forget about the issue, and then years later, I get pulled over for speeding, and you have a warrant, right? Another scenario is one day somebody shows up at your house, and they knock on the door and they're like, hey man, is Denis here? And let's say my wife answers and she's like, no, he's not here. What's this about? Well, we have a warrant for his arrest. Here's my card. I'm deputy so-and-so. Tell him to call me when he gets home. I'm like, warrant for what? Right. So you can have a warrant and you don't know about it. And that's by design, right? The cops don't want you to know when you have a warrant because they don't want you to take off.
Wow.
But when you have a
So,
warrant, it means that either you missed something, like you didn't pay something, or you didn't show up to court when you were supposed to show up to court, or they have completed some sort of investigation and now you're the target. They want to arrest you.
well, that's what I was going to ask. What, by the time I get a warrant, what's already happened behind the scenes?
So, in order to get a warrant, generally, a warrant is an order from a judge to go and arrest you. Okay.
Okay.
And so a cop has to fill out an affidavit, a sworn statement that says, I have reasonable suspicion that Dennis did this and I want Denis arrested. So the judge is supposed to look at that and go, well, based on this sworn statement, I find that the facts that you've pled create a reasonable suspicion, A, that a crime was committed, and B, that Denis is the person that committed the crime. So I'm going to grant this warrant. And a warrant is just an order that tells any cop, hey, if you come across Denis, pick him up.
Yeah.
Right. And so I live in Orlando, but I might be driving in Miami. And if I have a warrant, they're going to arrest me. Right. And they're going to hold me in Miami until Orlando comes and picks me up. But the same is true if I live in Orlando and I'm on a cruise ship and I come back and the cruise ship comes back to the port of Miami. When I get off the cruise ship or when I get off the plane, if there's a warrant, they're going to arrest me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
may not know about a warrant, but I'm going to pay the consequences for a warrant.
Are they all the same warrants, or like one warrant the same as another, or are there different types?
Yeah, there's different kinds, right? There's when you're talking about arrest warrants, there are investigative warrants, right? Where the cops are like, look, we got this
Oh, we want
version
to
of the
question you.
story. Yeah. The cops got one version of the story. They were never able to catch up with me to get the other version. So they said, we're going to put out an investigative warrant because based on the version of the story we got, we think that he committed a crime. Right? There's another kind of a warrant, and another kind of a warrant is cops are doing an investigation, and let's say it's a conspiracy to traffic in drugs, and so usually they're not only working together, but they're oftentimes working with a prosecutor, and a prosecutor may be, coordinating their efforts in terms of getting warrants for a wiretap or getting warrants for a search and seizure of a particular place or getting warrants to put a GPS tracker on somebody's vehicle. Okay.
Sure.
And so along the line, they're building this case, and you might hear, well, they've been building this case for 2 or 3 years. This group has been investigated since January of 2024 until June of 2026. Right. So it's almost, 2.5 years.
Wow. Yeah.
But then a warrant went out, and warrant went out for 6 people simultaneously because they concluded that these 6 people have been working and conspiring to traffic in drugs. And we've got a bunch of video and recordings, and we've even got undercover transactions. So cops sometimes, if cops are working undercover and they're trying to set me up or they're trying to get a drug deal going, they'll do a drug deal with me, and then they'll let me walk. Right? They don't arrest me, right? And then they'll
Right.
come back and they'll do another drug deal with me and they'll let me walk. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to not only build my confidence with them, but they're trying to either figure out where I'm getting my drugs from or let me get a pattern where maybe the third time they say, look, the first 2 times I got a small amount, but this third time I'm having a big party. It's New Year's. I want to have a bunch of people over. I want to get a big amount, right? I want to get a trafficking amount. So
Yeah.
these walk and buys where they let me go a couple of times is so that I have the confidence that the third time I'll do a big deal with them. And then they'll arrest me, right?
Yeah.
So, they'll
To the
set you
higher
up. They'll
level.
set you up and they'll let you hang yourself.
Yeah. What if there's a war? I don't that drug deal might be not a great example, but let's just say you ignore the warrant and hope it goes away, so to speak. I can't imagine that. I'm sure people try that. What happens? What happens? Does it just make it all that much worse?
It depends on the level. So let's say I got a DUI and I didn't go to court. Right, a DUI generally is going to be a misdemeanor. If I failed to appear in court, there's going to be a warrant, but it's a warrant for a misdemeanor. So let's
Okay.
say the reason I didn't go to court is because I came to Orlando for a conference. I went out in the middle of the
Yep.
conference to a dinner with
Got
the
arrested.
vendor.
Yep.
We had a bunch of drinks. I got arrested, but then I flew back to Ohio. right?
True.
You know, and I forgot about the court date. And so there's a warrant for my arrest for failing to appear in Orlando, but I live in Ohio. And so, can they arrest me in Ohio? Yeah. Are they going to extradite me from Ohio? Maybe, maybe not, right? So sometimes what happens is Ohio will say, dude, there's a warrant out for you. You want to go to Florida and handle this? Or they'll say, there's a warrant out for you. I'm taking you to jail. And then you'll sit in jail in Ohio waiting for Florida to come pick you up. If Florida doesn't come pick you up after a certain time, Ohio's got to let you go, right? Because they're not going to pay to extradite you. They're going to make Florida
Right.
pay. Now that's in a misdemeanor, but in a felony, you're going to be extradited, and a
Yeah.
felony is, you know, there's going to be enforceable all over the country.
Hmm.
And so, you know, if there's a warrant, it's not a good thing, right? It's better to
No.
face the piper than to unexpectedly pay the piper.
Well, I was gonna say, can you be proactive? Like maybe like this whole thing's going down. There's probably a warrant. Can I get ahead of it?
Absolutely. And so obviously you want a lawyer, because you know a lawyer can start communicating with the prosecutor about, listen, I know there's a warrant out. My client has retained me. We want to handle this. Can you agree to a bond so that we can do a walkthrough? Meaning, look, my client's going to fly back from Ohio, but I don't want him arrested as soon as he gets off the plane in Ohio. I'll make sure that once he lands in Ohio, within 24 hours, I'll surrender him at the Orange County Jail,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then we'll bond out. You know, so can we agree to a bond in advance? Can we agree to extradition? So sometimes I get people calling me from Ohio saying, "Man, I got a warrant out of Orlando because I failed to show up for my DUI case. What can you do?" Well, I can call the prosecutor and go, listen, we'll pay to fly him back here. Just grant us a bond and we'll communicate that to the Ohio jail, so that they can extradite themselves on their own nickel. And then we'll
Hmm.
deal with it that way. So you're always better off facing a warrant than trying to run from a warrant. And the warrant is just the beginning. You can turn yourself in on a warrant and still get not guilty on the case.
Yeah. Well, once you decide to deal with it, what am I walking into?
Again, generally, when there's a warrant, at some point you're going to have to turn yourself in.
Yeah.
Either the cops have caught you on the warrant and you're already in jail and you didn't know about it, or they came to your house looking for you, they came to your work looking for you, and you know there's a warrant. But at some point you're going to have to turn yourself in, because most judges will not activate a case while there's an active warrant. They at least have to know that you're in custody and available to come to court before they'll litigate the merits of whether or not you're going to be convicted of anything. So, you know, the downside
That
is you're
makes
going to
sense.
have to spend a nominal amount in jail. But if we can do what's called a walkthrough, if we know we can coordinate a warrant and turn you in, and while we're turning you in, the bond is being posted. And so it's just the processing time the jail has in order to accept the bond, post the bond, and release you. That minimizes your stay in the jail. And, you know, you can, some cases you can do a walkthrough, you know, in the same day, where you go in
Yeah.
the morning and you're out in the afternoon.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. Let's talk about, we've got a few minutes left. I'm wondering, like, what are the scenarios where these things start to spiral out of control? If, I mean, I don't wish that on anybody, but like, you've seen this, like, what usually causes these things to kind of go south?
First of all, people don't voluntarily want to go to jail, right? They don't like the idea. But let's
Right.
say, let's say, you
Not
know,
on my bucket
30 years,
list.
not on your bucket list, right? But 30, let's say 30 years ago, you were down here on spring break and you know, got into a bar fight, in Key West. And, you know, the next day you flew out and you went to Michigan, right? And now it's just 30 years later, you've never returned to Florida. You know, you've got a professional career, you have a family, you're not the same kid you were 30 years ago, right?
Right.
But there's a warrant out and you're like, shit, man, you know, I haven't been stopped, I haven't been caught, I haven't been, nobody's come looking for me, you know, but now I'm CEO of this, you know, big company,
Company.
and if
Yeah.
I get arrested, I mean, it's really going to be devastating to my career. I mean, I maybe I'm just going to keep trying to avoid this thing, because if they haven't found me in 30 years, why are they going to find me tomorrow? Right? That's the mentality. And the mentality is
Yeah.
because I want to avoid, but warrants are like cancer. Avoiding them doesn't make them get better.
Yeah.
Right? You're better off treating the cancer, facing the cancer. You're better off facing the warrant than you are waiting for it to come rear its ugly head,
Yeah.
because you may not realize it, and you may have been lucky for the past 30 years. But today, like I'm talking to you, I'm in Florida. You're not in Florida, but we're talking, right? Because why? Because technology.
Yeah.
Technology puts us in the same place and time. The world is small. Everybody has, all these different social media things. And so you might live in Michigan, but somebody from Key West is going to recognize you when they see you
Yeah.
on Facebook, or they,
Yeah.
you
Or
know,
on the cover of Forbes magazine for your
yeah,
CEO
there,
status.
there
Yeah.
you are with Elon Musk doing the IPO for SpaceX. And they're like, holy cow, that's the guy that beat the shit out of me in the bar 30 years ago. I recognize him.
Oh my God. Well, uh, so that's a good takeaway right there. Just if there's a warrant, just deal with it. Deal with it, deal with it, deal with it. Dennis, thanks as always for your expertise and your point of view. It's always an enjoyable conversation.
Well, listen, man. Hey, don't worry about that fight. I already paid the guy off. You're gonna be fine. It's all good.
Okay, good.
I even got some gift cards. We can go get some beers. So no, I'm just kidding.
Can I go back to Key West now safely? It's such a great place.
Apparently they have free room and board for you at the county jail.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Airbnb. Oh my God.
That's it. That's it.
I'll
No, I'm just playing, man.
I'll see you later.
All right, thanks, Sean.
That's it for today's episode of Lessons from the Sensei, Law, Business, and Life. If you'd like to learn more or speak directly with Denis Quintana, contact him at the firm Sensei Legal at 407-694-5403. Thanks for listening, and do us a favor, leave a review, subscribe to the show, maybe share a link with someone in your world who needs some legal advice in Florida. I'm Sean O'Connor. Have a great day.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.